Night Vision. Following clues left by our ancestors, we unbury the past to reveal a knowledge of unfathomable value, putting us just a little closer to our own true birthrights. From the secret history of a possible bloodline of Jesus Christ, the secret history of America's founders, to the secret history of extraterrestrial interaction on our planet, here to bring light to the night. Your host for Night Vision Radio, Renee Barnett.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Night Vision. I am your host, Renee Barnett. We've got a great show planned for you tonight. We have a wonderful guest. And of course, also with us is my wonderful colleague, James Martin, our historian here. And hey, James, how are you?
Very good. It's very early in the morning here.
I mean, I know we just talked 2 minutes ago backstage. But, we're going through the amenities. But it's what? It's warm.
It's quite warm.
It's warm there.
It's warm and it's quite late as well.
Well, it's quite late, but I'm surprised that it's warm. Actually, it's quite chilly here in California, where it's usually very warm. But we've been having lots of rain and cold, and it's been nice. But I'm kind of ready for it to go away now for a while and break through with some sunshine.
And I have to say, Renee, you're definitely an honorary Brit. Because the first thing that we do is always talk about the weather.
That's right.
It's absolutely vital.
Right. But I'm learning. I know there's certain things I'm not supposed to say. Talk about that it's not going to rain, because that is a big no-no, because then it will rain. Absolutely. And yes, I am an honorary Brit, and I discovered that myself just this week when I realized that I no longer notice when someone has a British accent, because I talked to so many, I'm jinxing the weather, that I've talked to so many Brits, especially you, Jess, that now my ear just is conditioned to it. But I do remember a time many years ago when I had a colleague. It was when I was in another lifetime working in corporate America, and I had a colleague, a counterpart in London, and your voice fluctuates much. I'm just going up and down and up and down, and I was really trying to follow her all around. And finally, I said, "Would you please speak English?" And she said, "I am speaking English." And I said, "Proper English." But I did ultimately get used to that cadence that she had, and those changing of octaves after a while. But now it's funny, I don't notice accents as much, particularly English accents, and a few others too. It takes me a minute to, realize, was that an accent, or, because I'm so used to it now. But we got a great show planned for tonight. This actually came up several days ago, when it was one of my middle of the night YouTube video sessions that I so often have. And I ran across a video on a strange place here in America, in Florida. There's a lot of strange things in Florida, but this is definitely one of them. And it's called the Coral Castle. And it was built by a gentleman all on his own. It's been wondered, there were huge stones that he used to build this thing. And it was in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And he did it all on his own, lifted these huge thousands of pound stones, put them up high on each other, stack them up. There are some images that sort of look like a Stonehenge type thing. There are certainly Christian influences, but there are also Islamic influences, which is really interesting, a big crescent moon. But the video that I happened to stumble across about the Coral Castle was produced by our good friend, author Court Lindahl. And so I'm going to bring him on now. Hey, Court.
Hey, how are y'all doing? Thanks for having me.
Good. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's the very next morning, I almost messaged you in the middle of the night. Well, I don't know if it's going to ding or anything, and I don't want to interrupt anybody, even though I always do interrupt you, James. I know what you're getting ready to say. I try not to, but sometimes I just have to. And as you and me, I'll say. And so, but the very next morning, first thing, I sent you a message and said, I just watched Coral Castle video that you did 10 years ago. And I said, it was really interesting. And it for one thing, it's this guy's sort of magnificent obsession, I think. And as we sort of talked about this show and in this particular location, we also realized that, he's not the only one. There are other structures that seem to have been built solely by one man in a magnificent obsession. And then there are other structures that maybe some of those may be more familiar to some of our listeners that were built by someone else, but it was the obsession or the idea or the dream of one person to build this and have the orientation be in a certain way and have it look this way and shape that way. And it all seemed to have, some kind of meaning, but we just don't know what, or we didn't know what. Now we're finding out. But so tell us about the Coral Castle, Court.
Well, you described it perfectly, because it's really interesting to me that Coral Castle was built by Ed Leedskalnin by himself in the 1920s, that he constructed this really fabulous monument that kind of harkens us back to places like the Tor Magdala, or the Tower of the Winds of Shugborough Hall, or the Tower of the Winds of Athens, that kind of inspired this mania for establishing one's domain or place on the globe by in turn establishing a prime meridian, which is just a true north line on the globe that we see, from your globe from elementary school, that had these lines on it that help you plot places on the earth. But this also had a lot of symbolic meaning in the establishment of one's domain in religions and other faiths in the world that came to be appreciated by noble people or people who appreciated history and would build things like a replica of the Tower of the Wind. So part of what we're seeing with Coral Castle is that Ed was establishing a prime meridian on the globe with a structure.
And I guess some of the strangeness and, that started all these sort of theories about how he might have built this structure all on his own were sparked by the fact that he had absolutely no help. He insisted on working alone and wouldn't let anybody see him work. And I guess there were some teenage boys or something that claimed that they saw him and they saw the rocks levitating, but teenage boys, who knows what that was all about. But
right.
You can
people thought he could levitate.
Yeah.
Right. He was using earth energies to levitate stones, or some of the theories that, apply to how he built it. But if we look back into the history of Ed, he was an actual stonemason. So he was well schooled in how to build structures like this using traditional means as well. So, but coupled with what you're saying with the mystery of why people think that he was floating the stones, is because he had an interest in such things, in physics and electricity, that he also wrote about. I mean, a lot of the money he made was from selling these pamphlets of his theories about magnetic energy, like magnet motors. We see people today do really make magnet motors. And there's a thing at Coral Castle that even resembles that, a magnet motor. if you look up Coral
and that
Castle.
was before, and that would have been made before anybody else figured it out, or before those were.
No, that was
made?
a concept that was known ever since people could make dynamos and things that could produce electricity if they were turned, how magnets could be arranged to keep something perpetually spinning. So in the modern world today, some people have made actual working models of a magnet motor that really do work. So that may have been one of the things he was developing. And a lot of people see this artifact at Coral Castle that resembles a magnet motor. If you look online, you'll see pictures of it, or if you just Google those terms, magnet motor and Coral Castle, there's a picture of what appears to be one, or something very similar that he was working on as part of what he was doing. So there's a lot of other reasons people think that he could actually, float stones, or built it using supernatural or alchemical means to have done this all by himself. But in addition, there's lots of evidence he used traditional means.
There's old
tripods
right here.
Right. Chain falls. He's looking rather dapper there in his derby. Absolutely.
Derby? Is it a derby hat, James, or is it a derby?
Oh, excuse me.
I'd be tempted to say derby. I think it's interesting, Kurt. I mean, we were just talking before the show about some of Ed's discussions around this notion that all particles have magnetism within it, and he's right. He produces that. I mean, it's very crude by today's standards, but really, what we would say today he's describing is the electrostatic forces that actually bind us together. They are electromagnetic. So it's really interesting that he's caught on to that. We understand, some of the things that bind us together as gluons. Now he's talking about magnets. The language is different, but the fundamental principles are the same.
Absolutely, and he could have known all of this, or been educated, or picked up on it somehow during his time in Latvia, where he came from, where he was a stonemason. So he could have traveled in circles of people, or been, attended lectures where these ideas were something that he picked up on and wanted to study and expand on. But what's clear is he did have this intellect to understand, what the same thing Thomas Jefferson understood, that at both of Thomas Jefferson's homes, Monticello and Poplar Forest, it's an established fact that he created personal meridians to mark where his property was. So he was schooled in land surveying and map making. So he was interested as well as accurately plotting his own property, the correct size and shape of it in relation to other parcels of land, as well as on a larger scale in relation to Washington, D.C. or Richmond, Virginia. So Ed somehow, I think, had heard about this concept, or had been schooled, possibly via him being a stonemason, that he became privy to this concept, because this isn't something the average person, would be fascinated with. It's people like, the Anson family, or nation states, countries like the Prime Meridian being at Greenwich in England, that people have a fascination with this subject. And, through time, there's a lot of like talismanic overtones to things like this that are symbolic.
So I mean, talking about the average person, here I am right here, and I hope I'm not the only one that doesn't understand this, and so would be interested in the answer. But you say, he created his own meridian, as you talked about others doing. So what would be the purpose of that? What would be the benefit of that? Is it like you're saying, is it some sort of talismanic thing? What is the purpose of creating your own meridian?
Well, it creates a way to plot your place on the globe, on a map. It's literally, I am on the map in a symbolic way, as well as being able to plot your own domain in a more occult sense, that you know exactly what is yours. You can define it by in reference to this central point. So religion applies that concept in many ways. Rulers and monarchs do. So eventually it became known to intellectual people, people that were part of the, alchemy. It was applied in many ways. I mean, even the name for one of these towers where the observations are made, what you're looking at is a point on Earth that's an astronomical observatory. So in order to measure the stars, you have to establish a north to south line on the globe, which you use the pole star to do. Right. So this is a line, a meridian that runs from the North Pole to the South Pole, right over the point on the Earth where you're taking the measurements from. So this became a value of noble people and people who had an esoteric bent as well, that applied their beliefs to things like this.
Just to give some historic context as well with this, in the 18th century, the main meridian, what we would call the Greenwich Meridian sort of ilk today, was actually centered through Paris. It's only with the exploration of the Earth, notably by the likes of James Cook and others, that meridian, that prime meridian, ends up in Greenwich. The quest really is, how do you know what time it is, for example, at a given point around the Earth? James Cook, for example, ends up, I think it's Tahiti, where he's trying to observe the transit of Venus across the sun. Now, unfortunately, you can't do that because there's various optical effects that mean that any measurements that you're trying to take of a transit blur out. We haven't got enough time to go into why that is, but it really has been the quest. How do you know what time, really whereabouts you are about the globe? We today, I'm just reminded of a quip with the late Tim Willis-Murphy, who had a friend who believed in ley lines, and a journalist, very dismissive, said, "Oh, you don't believe in any of these ley lines, do you? I mean, that's just nonsense, invisible lines on the map." And Tim's friend says, "Well, of course I do. I used to navigate by them during the war, flying planes. We just call them longitude and latitude."
Right, and those have some different spiritual overtones than the strictly, kind of practical uses of what I'm talking about. But that speaks to the talismanic and spiritual beliefs that people do apply to such things as well. There's a little bit of difference between ley lines and the axis mundi concept that I'm talking about, but they're both oriented towards navigation as well as spiritual things. So I do appreciate that, like the Michael line in England. That's a definite real thing that was used for practical purposes as well as the spiritual ones that you're talking about. People believe they can see and feel the energy, from these things. And that, it's similar to kind of the awe we have from going into a cathedral or to a place that we've kind of been told is special to begin with. The stone circle, Stonehenge, all have a similar purpose to what Ed was doing. Because if you go to Coral Castle, it's oriented to true north, to the poles of the Earth. And he even built an obelisk there with a sighting device that lets you sight the North Star, which gives you true north. So he was displaying some knowledge that was esoteric, that he was smart enough himself, no matter how humble his origins were, but probably part of being a Freemason or a stonemason, in Latvia. He figured this out or was taught this through, some esoteric order. And there's so much we don't know about Ed that it's hard to say exactly why and how he picked this all up.
This sort of goes back, James, to our conversation, was it last night, about the creators, they're always the workers, the average guys, so to speak.
That's a good point.
This is it. I mean, we were discussing artwork, and it's like, no, it's workers who produced this. I mean, for more context as well, I mean, Ed Leedskalnin is born in the governorate of Livonia in the Russian Empire. His education would not have included anything hyper scientific, any real understanding of astronomy that he clearly later moved on to understand. It's it's absolutely fascinating. So, I mean, Kurt, I mean, my view from reading him is, I think a lot of this was self-taught, which just makes it even more incredible, I think.
I agree that somehow through the process of being a stonemason, he had natural intelligence. Of course, he was a high IQ person, I would imagine, that just didn't have the opportunities to find out the established ways of why he would appreciate these things. So that's even more impressive. I agree with you that he just figured it out himself to a large degree. He might have had some help. There's a lot of we don't know about his past, obviously, because the stated reason he comes to America was because his girlfriend wouldn't marry him. The Sweet 16 concept, which also matches other aspects of the whole story at large.
I mean, I wonder if the intelligence comes from the high omega content, because I was reading something that he only ate crackers and sardines. He was pretty eccentric in that regard. I don't know if you've come across anything like that. But the 16 element is intriguing. For example, I mean, 16 comes in quite a bit. For example, in Tomar, which was headquarters of the Knights Templar in Portugal, the 16 figure is at the central chapel up at at the Convento de Cristo, the Convent of Christ. Has 16 sides on the outside of it and an octagonal shape on the inside. Have you got any insight as to whether or not this Sweet 16 is in reference to this loved one as the song goes, or whether or not there's something more esoteric with it?
I think we might have lost Court. I see his screen's gone dark. But to answer that question, that's sort of the cover story, I guess. But I was just wondering myself, because of the 16 lines that he was talking about, whether or not that was really a reference to that. So I wonder if we could take a break and see if we can't get Court back, or maybe there he
Apologies.
is.
Somebody knocked at the door.
Oh my Lord.
The perils of live radio. I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's okay. What James was asking, which I think I may have answered, was this concept of the Sweet 16 really about this love affair? Now, what happened was he was, I guess, 26. His fiance was 16 already.
Right.
It's kind of weird, but probably not in those days. Anyway, and then they were getting ready to get married, and at the last minute, I guess she dumped him. And he was supposed to be broke-hearted and all that stuff. But I'm wondering if 16 tons. But I'm wondering if that was just a cover story too.
Well, I can explain it. I think, at least.
Do it.
I have my crazy theory about the whole thing. So let me go to sharing the screen, and we'll have a look at some imagery on Google Earth that I'll try to explain for all the people out there who can't see the screen as well.
Okay.
that here, let's, I'm going to go to the Vatican in Rome, and we'll look at the St. Peter's Square of the Vatican, which we all know has an obelisk in the middle of St. Peter's Square. And it's surrounded by a circle. And within this circle, at each 22.5-degree increment of an 8-sided figure, there's a small marker called a windrose marker that has compass directions emblazoned right on the marker. So there's 16 of these that all say east, west, east, southeast, and so on. So for those of you that can't see at home, what you end up with is something that has a line on the globe or an arc on the globe marked at every one of these markers in relation to the Egyptian obelisk in the middle. So this is like the North Pole. If you look at the latitude and longitude grid of the Earth and you're looking at the North Pole, it's a point of Earth where these lines are extending from it in even intervals like I'm describing at the Vatican. So they're just moving the axis mundi, or the axis of the world, to a given point on the Earth. So in my studies, I found that these directions on the globe point to some very impressive places, including Coral Castle. And I theorize that it's at least possible that Ed knew about this concept of the axis mundi and the prime meridian, and he created his own right there in Florida. So he was, as I'm saying, he was kind of hip to this whole concept. He knew that there was a tradition of this. You can see it. The windrose marker in relation to the obelisk points right to Coral Castle, which makes this even more amazing in that at one point we know, and I think it was 1936, Jay, was that when he moved it?
It was around that period, yes.
Yes, so he actually moved it to make possibly this correspondence even closer than he had originally. So if we look at the Vatican, it points to all kinds of interesting places on the globe, including the Dome of the Rock, Aachen Cathedral, where the miracles of Fatima took place. Many other places that were intentionally built to match these alignments, including here in the port of Portus in Rome, or Ostia, the Torre St. Michael, which is an octagonal tower as well, that was oriented to point right back to the center of St. Peter's Square. So right here in the main port of Rome, they built an octagonal tower where one of the facets of the tower actually pointed back to St. Peter's Square. So this tradition is all over the world.
Did you find, you're saying you found important locations, for many of those 16 lines that are coming from the center there of the Vatican, the axis mundi.
Yes, absolutely. One of the azimuths.
Do some of them pass through one important location and then extend out to other locations as well?
Sure, there's a few. Like one of them goes to Chartres Cathedral,
right,
and passes over, within a few hundred meters of where the Shroud of Turin is displayed in Torino. It points to the Spear of Destiny, right to the Hofburg Treasury House in Vienna, where the Spear of Destiny is held. It points directly to the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, which is an octagonal structure that was built in the same tradition we're speaking of, which one of the octagonal facets of the Dome of the Rock actually points directly back. So I showed you how it pointed to Constantinople, or what's now Istanbul, to the royal district and the obelisk of Theodosius earlier. the opposite direction points to Fatima, Portugal,
Wow.
where the miracles of Fatima took place. So, I mean, this could all be a coincidence, but it's an awful grand one considering the kind of things, you could figure that it could point anywhere randomly on the earth and you'll hit something, but all of these things are really
Right.
significant in the kind of story of the church. So it's interesting that whether random or not, Ed certainly had the capacity to have planned it that way if he wanted to.
Yeah.
I
You
do
mentioned
believe that.
He was a stonemason. I'll ask the obvious question. Was he a Freemason?
There's
Do we
no
know?
there's no sign of that. I mean, there's no recorded statement or record that anybody's found that says he is. It's certainly possible during the time when he first came to America, which Jay and I were kind of speculating was before World War I, possibly. That he could have well been. I don't know, but he was an actual stonemason, so that's geometry, that's designing and engineering. So these are things he was adept at, regardless if he was a Freemason or not.
But it seems like he was tuned into things historically as well, and maybe esoterically. So I just wondered if that might have been the source of some of his information.
Sure.
Were you going to say something, Jay?
Go ahead.
There's certainly a number of Masonic symbols in the rocks that are carved at the castle. I was just going to say, I think 1913, it's definitely before World War I breaks out that he ends up, I think, a logger up in the Pacific states of the US. But I suppose the question would be, if he wasn't a Freemason, the symbols that he's carving, are they just because they're common symbols, or perhaps was he in fact a Freemason as well? I suppose I'm not sure history would record that necessarily.
Right. Well, he was adept at like the whole concept of the Axis Mundi recording time, because he did he made the obelisk with where you could sight the North Star to begin with. And then he also had a sundial. And then if you couple that with the carvings of the planets and the moon that he included, the crescent moon, and other things, they could be clues as to the way he figured out if it is true that he put this here because it aligned with the Vatican via the windrose markers and the obelisk that creates an Axis Mundi. So even though he probably wasn't Catholic, that he was showing you that this is what he was doing, that he knew and had learned this somehow. And I can't explain that, but it is clear he was a really intelligent person, that he had a high IQ. He wrote, papers and produced pamphlets on electrical current and other concepts that were kind of advanced, or what you wouldn't expect from somebody doing what Ed did. And he may have even, there's rumors, there's no source I can find, that he actually might have known Nikola Tesla. Some people promote that idea. Although when I go looking, I can't find any hard, source or anything. That could be just a legendary part of it. So
do you know anything about his religious background? He was from Latvia. I wonder what the primary religion was in Latvia at that time.
Right. Well, it's hard to discern. There's so little information about him from before he came to Florida, that it is interesting that Latvia and Lithuania were one of these places, like when the Crusades in the Holy Land were done, that they enacted a crusade there with the Teutonic Knights because they were still pagan. And this is one of the last vestiges of what could be considered Viking culture and religion. that at that time in the 14th century and 15th century, that is when the church subdued the pagans in that region. So who knows? There's a lot of different sources he could have had where he gained this information, but I think it was because he was a stonemason that you're so educated in geometry that if you just apply that to the globe, that you're an artificer, you build something that, let's face it, throughout time, there's been a class of people that built the world too on a large scale, that planned empires and developed cities and things like that, that this would have been of value to them as well. In a military sense too, it could, if you knew all about this and how it actually worked, this could be a big advantage to you over an enemy that didn't know how to plot their position on the globe or navigate, for example.
I think just to note on the time that he was growing up in religion, there's Lutheranism as well as Russian Orthodox Church, but in that area, or the Baltic states and further into Russia, there were a large number of pogroms against Jewish population. So a lot of migration out of, if you wish, you could describe it as a brain drain. A lot of intelligent people were fleeing from Russia at that time to places like Great Britain and the United States for protection. I cannot find anything about his religious upbringing, though. So who knows, whether or not that was influenced in any way. But it is interesting to note that about the Teutonic order and then the late Crusade. Almost certainly, it's funny, Kurt, because yes, the church goes to crusade against the last pagans, the last vestiges of the Vikings. My suspicion is, if you start looking then at expeditions across to Greenland and then the attempts to find Vinland, I'm not sure that if populations had been found in Greenland, the Viking populations, there wouldn't have been a crusade over to the what we now call the United States.
Right. That could be. That's a whole nother show. And who knows? I mean, I tend not to I wouldn't say not to believe, but I think it's a lot less likely that the Knights Templar, for example, ever came to America.
Definitely.
And I know in alternate weird history that's like anathema to a lot of people, and they don't even want to listen to me because I don't believe those things, but there's really no hard evidence. I mean, it's a great idea. It's possible. And I would love it if some evidence surfaced that was, decisive, that would say something like if they found a L'Anse Meadow site further south that had Knights Templars with it, but we don't. And we have these kind of scant artifacts.
A lot of people point to the Westford Knight carving as an evidence of Templars being here, but it could have just been someone carving a picture.
I completely agree. The Westford Knight is Clan Gun. It's a Scottish clan. The Newport Tower also, but this comes after the Templars are disbanded. Yeah. As you know, I'm writing a book about what happened here, so it's the descendants of Templars maybe, but we know the Vikings were in North America for sure.
Of course. Yeah, but the Templars, I don't think so either. Unfortunately, it'd be exciting if they were. It'd be wonderful. But
right, a lot of the evidence for even Vikings in America, I don't think there needs to be more, beyond L'Anse Meadow, that a lot of the examples are part of the Norwegian romantic nationalist movement, where, America has been like this playground for other culturals and nationalist groups from Europe to claim they were the ones, who discovered it, and not Columbus, which we know he didn't even discover it anyway, right? Yes, he was just the first European interest to establish a lasting presence, via the islands that where he started having a colony, and that's it. So as far as mainland North America or South America, he didn't have anything to do with that, but he blazed the pathway, and that's about all we can say at that time. That I just a lot of the Henry Sinclair story and a lot of the other ones. If you look into those and really look for period source documents, that you'll come up lacking, that you won't really find any hard historical evidence. And a lot of times, if you follow those theories back, you'll see the first time anyone mentioned them was in the late 18th century and things like that, that these were later politically motivated ideas in many cases. And we see this throughout time, and I have more coming about this in the near future, that intelligence services and other esoteric-oriented groups often spun a history that was complementary to their own order and their own beliefs. So that happens a lot too. And that's one of the coolest things about Coral Castle is, like, it's just this guy who built it, It's like he didn't, leave a record
but
of
how
anything
did he
like
build
that.
it?
Yeah.
How did he do it?
Well, he was a
How
stonemason.
did he do it?
He knew
But
how
how
to
did
do
he
it.
lift those heavy stones by himself?
Right. Well, that video I sent you today, the rare footage of Coral Castle, if everybody goes on YouTube and word searches the rare footage of Coral Castle, it shows Ed using a chain fall and a tripod to lift a huge stone that has to be several tons. And he uses a come along with log rollers. And the little blurb, this is a film that was likely made as a cartoon thing at the beginning of a movie, before you see a movie
Right.
back in the 1930s.
A little newsreel kind of thing.
Exactly. And it shows him using a come along with log rollers, and it says Ed knew the secrets of the Egyptians, as part of the thing as he's working the come along. And then it shows him with a chain fall that can lift very heavy objects, and he's lifting the stones that's like 3 meters by 2 meters, by 2 meters thick with a chain fall by just pulling.
Some of them are very thick. There's some that, remind me of like Stonehenge type structures.
I mean, be aware it took him 26 years to build this.
That's wild.
The first, yeah.
Cool. We've got a question from a listener, Ben Zavala. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Who's just asked, is it true a group of teenagers snuck into Coral Castle and saw floating stones?
We did do that
at the top, but just to, I don't know, re-emphasize, were there helium balloons as they were described by teenagers?
Well, I've heard that story, of course. That's famous. That's from In Search Of, the old TV show.
Yeah.
That was one of the places that I first heard, that tale as associated with, exactly, with Coral Castle. And if you look at the video I just told you about, it shows him lifting it with the chain fall with a tripod of logs. And the stone does appear to be floating and slowly oscillating there in place. And I could see where somebody could see it and think it had been made lighter somehow or something like that. I'm not being a total skeptic. I know things are weird in the world, right? That it could be some kind of technology Ed had or some kind of supernatural thing going on related to where he was doing it on the globe with earth energies. But you can't forget, he was a stonemason.
Yeah, Benjamin.
He knew these things. He knew how to lift large stones. It was his craft. He knew.
Benjamin says in the chat room that that was from a book that has about Coral Castle that he read, and he said also a forklift driver that Ed asked to step away. Then the forklift driver heard a large thud, and the stone was already on the flatbed.
Right. Well, I don't know how to explain that. Maybe he left the part out about the tripod with the stone hanging from it that he backed his truck up on. Who
Yeah,
knows?
Ben says according to the book. Yeah.
All right. I mean,
Thank you,
I always
Benjamin.
have I'm sorry, Benjamin. I always have kind of a rational view when I hear stories like this. I've learned over the years, like when I first started writing, I would have been more apt to believe Knights Templar came to America, maybe, or that it was at least possible. But I told myself, I'm going to go look for real historical primary sources that say these things. And when you follow some of these things back, not all of them, you can see what book they actually oriented in, like where originated, excuse me, that you can see the person that made the story up and why they might have done it. So I would encourage everybody to always not believe exactly what you hear and go check it out yourself if you have the time. And often you'll come up with a much different story that's as equally interesting and strange, but that's not the way things get told. And, Jay and I were talking before the show, speaking of the Leonard Nimoy show In Search Of, that in many ways kind of the alternative scene in the media these days is still rehashing all of those same stories from the In Search Of show, that those things still
come back
continually
around.
Right. There's one about Saint-Germain, you name it, the Bermuda Triangle, the whatever else you can think of under the sun, Ancient Aliens. That's where all that started or got really popular, I think, in the minds of the public as well. So it's funny. One of them is the coming ice age. Like in the 70s, they were scaring you with the coming ice age, right? And now it's global warming. So it's like, take your pick, I mean,
yeah, either way, we're screwed.
right. Yeah, that part's true, right?
I think I think it's a really good point. There's two things that when you're looking at anything in history, never look through the glasses of today and assume that the same values of today existed back then. But also, when we're looking at sources, we have to remember everything that is written down is biased. Now, it used to be taught, certainly I was taught that these are called primary sources. So, this is first-hand evidence. Even then, there's biases. So you write something down, anything you write down is there for a purpose. And it could be someone who's paying for the book. It could be self-bias in this way, political, etc., etc. So you've always got to be wary of that. And even though something was contemporary, doesn't necessarily mean it's unbiased or trustworthy.
Right. Some of the best things I found are from personal journals.
Oh my gosh. We were just talking about this last night.
Right. That's where people are really telling you, right? They're telling you exactly. There's no, all the BS is cast aside and they're telling you exactly what's going on. I always look at the correspondence of Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, and you learn so much about like the French people they knew and who their friends were and what their beliefs were. And it's just a really great source that opens up all of this different view and true view of what was going on. Like the thing about Thomas Jefferson's personal meridians, I found that in a letter his college professor wrote to somebody else. And, I'd already theorized that was true just from looking at the evidence. And then I found that and I had, wow, I was right. Look at this hard evidence that what I thought may be true actually was. So a lot of times you'll find that in things looking at like Francis Bannerman, the guy who built the Scottish castle and the island in the Hudson River.
Bannerman Island.
I found a journal of Lady Bannerman and Lord Bannerman, distant relatives of his, where they were present in Longfellow's house when he was writing Song of Hiawatha, which is the poem that he wrote about Vikings coming to Minnesota, 40 years before somebody found a rune stone there. Things like that. So
is that the one that starts out by the shores of Gitchigumi, by the
I
shining
think so. Yeah, yeah.
waters, stood
Right,
the
and it just
wigwam of Nokomis, daughter of the moon, Nokomis.
yeah, and he wrote other things too, like the Musician's Tale, which he wrote for his friend Ole Bull, you know, that was a
Wow.
Norwegian violinist, right? And it contained in the Musician's Tale is the saga of King Olaf, the Viking, too. So Longfellow had an obsession with that, and he associated with these people. Carl Christian Raffin, the first man to suggest the Newport Tower was Norse, was a close friend of Longfellow's. And the Bull and Raffin were part of the Norwegian Romantic Nationalist movement that was promoting the fact that Norse people had discovered America, whether it was true or not. This was like a nationalist thing that as I was saying, America's always been subject to different cultures trying to tell us, where we came from, and it was them. And it just,
Yeah.
it just wasn't this random amalgamation and happening of the revolution that somebody was responsible for it. So,
Yeah.
which I think were Jacobites myself.
Here we go, blaming the Brits again.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the Scottish. Don't forget them, right?
Yeah, don't forget the Scottish. We were going to get into this idea about these magnificent obsessions and these structures going up by individuals, or with the idea, an obsessive idea by an individual. And we were going to mention one in France. We precious little time left to do so, but maybe we'll go into that another time. There's a place in southern France called Le Palais Ideal, or the Ideal Palace, built by a postman, a mail carrier, another worker named Ferdinand Cheval. And there it is. It's just unbelievable.
It's very ornate. Yes.
It is. And his story was he was walking along, and he tripped over a stone. And I think there's the stone that he tripped over. And when he tripped over it, he suddenly recalled a dream that he had, in that dream he had built a palace. And so he took the stone, and then he started finding all these other unusual and different stones, and that's how he started out and built his
Right. Next thing you know, bam, there's another similar.
And what I found was, and of course, it always leads off into another thread, because I found that the place where his palace is, the Ideal Palace, is right adjacent to a village which formerly was named Saint Annemie, who in Annemie was the sister of Dagobert I. And there's a great story about her history there in that region. And so as I told you, Court, earlier, I'd already called Jay's attention to that place and said, "Hey, let's make a road trip next time I'm over."
Check that out. That would be great to see some video.
Yeah, I think it's within a couple of hours. Yeah, absolutely. So we can go by and see the.
That speaks to places like this everywhere. That somebody decides they're gonna, out of the norm, not a nation or a state or a rich person or a noble person decides they're gonna put their mark. They're gonna make their prime meridian and stake out their domain. That it's an interesting thing that a lot of common people like the mailman could become obsessed with it. And I'm sure he enjoyed that. It kept him busy.
Yeah,
and probably physically fit.
Unfortunately, he had been through tragedy after tragedy. His children both died at very young ages, and then he lost his wife, and he lost his second wife. I mean, and then he was just at this stage of his life when he tripped over the stone, he was alone. So it was kind of interesting. Maybe that's what, he used to work through his grief and his issues, because
right, just like Ed Leedskalnin.
Exactly.
That was kind of some of his motivation, or at least the way this legendary story is told with the Sweet 16, that he was just grieving and had left and ended up building this thing and then dedicated his life to that instead. So makes for a good romantic story.
Yeah, it's interesting. But, I do think that emotion and grief sometimes does, kind of spark creativity somehow.
Certainly,
or
motivate you.
A lot of sad songs are written,
Exactly.
A lot of artwork is done, of a woman that some artist is pining for. It's not always the wonderful things that inspire the great art. I think it's sometimes tragedy. Yeah,
poetry. It's poetic.
Well, gosh, it's just about time for our break, and we're going to say goodbye and thank you very much, Court. And I hope you guys. Oh, by the way, Court's got lots of cool stuff out there. So just do a search for Courtland Books and have a look at and see all the things that he's written and about all these different locations and this history and these families that seem to be all interconnected in some strange way. So please check his books out. And James and I will be right back with Night Vision After Hours. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Scrolling all day, time can disappear. Wanna make it count? Why not volunteer?
Posting pics of your food, that takes up time. Time, you've got time
to binge all of season 9, though it got so bad.
Time, you got time. We're gonna grow back and be the same browse you had.
Just a few hours to keep families from harm. Help us end home fires with Sound the Alarm.
Volunteer for a day to install free smoke alarms in your community.
Discover the Observation Deck, a one-of-a-kind virtual event platform that takes video conferencing to the next level by using avatars to navigate a campus. There's so many areas and activities to choose from. There's a 1,000-seat auditorium, an expo hall, a nightclub, and even a beach. So come attend a conference, take a class, or hear a lecture on the incredible Observation Deck campus. Go to theobservationdk.com.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
Well, welcome Night Vision After Hours with Renee and James, where we're going to just do a little chatting with you and with each other. And hopefully those of you in the chat room will join in. Should we have Bill open the lines in case someone wants to give us a call, and if there's anything of interest that they hear from us, or if they'd like to give us a suggestion on upcoming shows they'd like us to cover, subject matter, that sort of thing. So, actually, also, I want to bring Bill on for just a moment. Bill? Where are you, Bill? He's hiding. Here he comes.
I am hiding.
Hey.
I'm still not feeling great.
Hey, should we open the phone line?
We don't have phone line.
I thought we had a phone line.
We're getting a new system. We're getting an upgrade.
Oh, cool. Okay, we'll do that then. But I wanted you here because this is a celebration night. And we have a very, very, very special occasion to celebrate. And I'm not kidding in any way, shape, or form. We're celebrating a 10-year anniversary for my best friend, James Martin. And I'm going to let you tell the anniversary is, James.
Well, it's 10 years of me being clean.
Yay! Woo!
Congratulations.
That is freaking big stuff. I'm not kidding. I mean, so many people have problems. And I mean, of course, James, I've experienced that in my family and with family members, and people are suffering everywhere with addictions of all kinds. And so I just think that is absolutely freaking stellar. Can I say freaking?
Yes, you can. We could even say more.
All
but
right. Freaking stellar. It's amazing. So congratulations.
Congratulations. But you know what? The two of us, Renee and I, we have an addiction we need to stop.
What?
Smoking cigarettes.
Well, wait a minute. What about the three of us?
Well, he's already got one major achievement. We haven't even
You don't know what I've managed to give up in my past. But
it's just to say to everyone as well. I mean, thank you guys for saying that. But just for those who are struggling or think they may have an addiction and may have a problem, talk about it. One of the things I'm really keen on doing is talking about these things, because if we stigmatize, if we criminalize, if we do all of this, then it goes into the background, it goes underground, and we suffer from it. So talk about it, and if you need help and support, there's plenty. There's STEP programs, there's lots of programs out there, and if you want to drop us an email, info@NewRennies. I'm more than happy to at least point you in the direction that could change your life.
But you know what else?
Absolutely.
It's also a function of having funding for mental health.
Yes.
Because a lot of people suffer from depression, anxieties, and whether it's through the use of alcohol or drugs or whatever the outlet is, this is I would say they use it as a comfort. It's to relieve the pain. I mean, so
self-medication.
Exactly. So I think the mental health aspect is important, and I know a lot of people in the past. Sadly, some were homeless and they didn't get the help because it wasn't mandatory. It was voluntary, and they cut all the funding, whether it was state, local, federal. It's like, where do they get the help? They're not even, they have to volunteer. You think somebody is going to volunteer for the help? They're addicted. They don't really have true control of what they're going through if they're
when they're ready, Bill, they do volunteer. I've seen it happen. And I tell you also, I at least nowadays, I don't know how it was a few years ago, but because I've had to spend a lot of time researching for help, for a very close family member, I realized there is a lot of help out there. And particularly in the United States now, since, the Affordable Care Act was passed several years back, people do have a way to, I'll just say this, and I'm not going to give any more information, but my family member's been in rehab about 6 times now. We paid for it the first time because we didn't know any better, but once he was in there, they immediately signed him up for insurance, and it's paid for everything ever since. And that would have been tens and tens of thousands of dollars. So there's help out there. So if you're in the United States, certainly, give us a message, and I might be able to help you with some of that. And for the other side of the pond, James could certainly be of help. And not only that, being someone that's been through it himself, he can offer that kind of support as well. So we just want everybody to be happy.
Just
I'm
like
so proud of you, and I'm so jazzed. I didn't know you back then, but I know how hard it is. So it's an amazing thing that you've done. It really
I just
is.
want to ask James, because I think a lot of people, I've quit smoking and then I start smoking again. Is every day a battle? Is every day difficult to deal with the past addiction, or did it get easier over time and it's like in the rear view window now? Or is this something you have to deal on a daily basis?
As soon as you wake up, it doesn't go away. The best way to think about it is like a disease. The first step for everyone is not thinking that it's a problem, that you're somehow, you sort of stigmatized. If you admit to this,
there's something wrong with you because you got addicted.
Yeah. And usually, telltale signs are chronic debt, which is certainly something I experienced around about £22,000 worth of it, which 3 years ago I paid off and had a little card and all this. It was very nice.
Oh my goodness.
But it's that. And the first step is talking to someone about it. It's a daily. It's not a battle. I suppose the way to look at it is if you have fibromyalgia, or you have had a amputation, or you have diabetes, these aren't things to be stigmatized. This is something that you have to live with each day. And yes, you have to adopt the way that you think and approach things. I tell you, the biggest challenge I thought I was going to face, it really wasn't, was when I was being offered drugs. Oh, it was dead easy to say no. Really easy, in fact.
How could it be so easy?
The problem was then when you're on your own and you're then thinking, well, it'll be fine. I could just do this and it'll be fine. That thought process is the killer for me. As soon as you justify, we do this. Look, I smoke and probably drink too much, but
Bill's told everyone that we all do. So
if you want to know, everyone, what we do during the break, there you go. But that thing where you say, right, I'm going to give up smoking. You then start, I'll tell you a quick story. It was the New Year's Eve. I was at a friend's house, and all the Masonic handshakes and all of this. Oh, by the way, that's Old Lang Syne for you. And all of this. And then you get to the New Year's resolution point, which I don't believe in. But I remember saying foolishly, I'm going to give up smoking. It got past midnight and I have a cigarette, and then it's hold on, you're meant to give up. And it's like, oh, well, it's not really, it's not really tomorrow, is it yet? So no, I've still got some left. And so that process that you go through, and it was the next day I had some friends stopping with me. And sorry to all vegans and vegetarians out there, but the smell of bacon will always make people wake up. Now, I'm outside, I've got 8 cigarettes left, and I'm fine. I'm not shaking at all. Then 6 left, then 1. And then I'm kidding myself. The guests would come out and say, "Oh, then you said you were giving up." Oh, yeah, I just finished this pack. And then I'm saying to myself, well, what I will do is I will never buy another packet of cigarettes again. I'll just take them from friends and do all of this. That process, that change curve, if you will, that resistance to change is absolutely the thing that you experience every day.
I will say this, it's still Veterans Day. Well, in some places, technically. What's going on with the veterans and mental health and the addictions that they're dealing with and the demons that they have to battle with, whether it's related to PTSD. I've seen it myself in person at a homeless shelter. It is a disgrace what our veterans go through, that the lack of care that they get. I mean, it was a high percentage in this homeless shelter were veterans. And you know what they would do?
And we didn't even mention that it's Veterans Day.
That's what I'm saying.
Thank you to all veterans for your service.
Yes.
We should have said that at the top of the show, and I meant to. Absolutely. Yeah.
Can I just say for everyone that's listening too, there is a cure for addiction. I mean, we could get into the biology of oxytocin, but I'll just say this. When you do a good deed for someone, that feeling you get of pride and what have you can be witnessed by other people, and they get the same oxytocin release. That oxytocin will inhibit addiction. And this is one of the key things. We don't want to get hyper political or anything like that.
So you almost might say happiness is the cure for addiction.
Well, there might be a reason why married couples tend to live longer, although with some of my friends, you do wonder. But couples live longer, that kind of idea.
Wait a minute. I beg to differ with that. Married men live longer than single men. Married women do not live longer than single women. So who's getting the better end of that deal? It's the men. You know why they live longer? Because they've got somebody taking care of them all the time. That's why.
I mean, there could be a lot of reasons.
Yeah, that's just 50% of listeners just.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Touch that at all, but it's all good. But anyway, congratulations.
Cheers, Bill. And like I say, just for those who are wondering how they can help, if we wait for politicians to come with answers, then you might as well go buy a coffin.
You got to do it.
We can't wait. So if you're wondering how you can help, whether it's you call them veterans, but let's just call it anyone who is struggling with mental health or addiction or anything like that. If you're wondering how you can help, try volunteering. Just sit and listen to people. It doesn't require you to be writing vast checks or anything like that. You just, listen, volunteer where you can, help wherever you can, feel good about doing that. And that's all. I have on my calendar here, my good deed for the day. Sometimes it's just 5 minutes. Sometimes it's an hour, whatever it is. But just think of it like that and keep focused on it. You will feel good. And I can't possibly tell you the person who's receiving that, it can change their lives.
I will say this. I know a few people who have issues. But to try to approach them, to try to have a discussion, because it's really difficult. I don't care how close you are to the person. Sometimes the best conversation you have is from an absolute stranger to get their advice. But when you know somebody,
it's easier sometimes to talk to a stranger.
Yes, exactly. it's really hard to think about how you're going to approach the situation without making the person hostile, feeling offended, disrespected. But you have to bring it to their attention because obviously they're not aware of what they're doing to themselves. So
that's not necessarily true.
No, I'm saying I'm not saying in all
a lot
instances.
of times they're very aware, but I think what might be the case sometimes is they think that a lot of other people are not aware of their condition. You know, they think they're doing okay. They think they're getting by. They think they're, getting away with it or something.
Renee,
but I think
they're doing better with it. And I'm talking about opioids or I'm not talking about alcohol, necessarily cocaine or crack, I'm just saying sometimes by over medicating on certain prescription drugs, they think, I feel great. I haven't felt this great in years. And they're killing themselves. They are slowly killing themselves.
Well,
and it's hard to talk to them. It's hard to address it.
The Western pill approach, which is to give pills, we work long hours. We increase, we decrease the amount of time we have to spend with family and friends. Some people, especially in the United States, have to work more than one job. And instead of dealing with the trauma, whatever it is, we instead take a pill. And it gets rid of the problem. It doesn't get rid of the problem, though, does it? It plasters over the problem. And yet, speaking to people who you don't know can help, speaking to people that you do know you help. Caution, if somebody is at the point where, sorry to say this to everyone, but about 90% of people who have a problem don't realize that they have a problem and suffer ultimately, or they are not recoverable. You really don't want to a different person today than I was. But if we say to someone, you've got a problem, the immediate reaction for most is, no, I don't, clam up, and all of this. The key step for a lot of people is understanding that they've got a problem, and it would help in society if we didn't stigmatize people.
Yeah.
That we understood addiction. Let me ask you a question. If you wake up naked in the morning, wandering around the house with your phone glued to you and all of this, then you're an addict. You're just an addict to your phone. If you can't wait the 2 minutes...
Do you have to be naked, though? I mean...
well, it's night vision after hours, so but if it helps, if you can't wait to respond to a text message while you're driving, even though you're going to be home shortly, you're probably an addict. Look, people get addicted to all sorts of stuff, but it's some addictions. Most addictions are unhealthy. Some might be healthy and all of this, but I'm just saying that we should just look at it in a different way, which is it's more of a disease. It's not an affliction and all of this. The people who suffer from addicts, the person who's addicted, nowhere near as much as their friends, family, and people that they come across.
Absolutely. They all suffer as well. But I'm going to get the heck off because we still have a little time for night vision after hours. But keep up the great work with your books that you're working on.
Oh my gosh.
And I definitely, you got to let me know. I got to grab that book.
Well, Uncharted is out in April. And book 2 is under the working title of Out of Order, The Downfall of the Knights Templar. However, there are perhaps 2 other books, one called Order of Magnitude and one called Last Orders, which again is chronicling the rise, the conditions that allowed for the rise of the Knights Templar. And then the effect that the Templars have had on our culture today.
Cool.
But there's one more book. There's going to be one more book, remember? We just came up with it. The women.
Oh yeah. We need to get a title to that. Maybe, Renee, it could be Most Women Die If They're Married, or something like that.
I think so.
I'm going to be subliminal here. Renee, you just got to be easy because you know you got something possibly going on in the future. I need you on my end. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? So you might be a little busy and occupied.
Okay.
I've got to just ask Benjamin, who's in the comment section, just put he smells like cheese. Which type?
Oh my
Camembert
God!
or Dairy Lee or something?
Oh, Ben is a great guy.
It's the stand commitment.
I need to go now.
All right, Bill. Thanks for joining us.
Anyway, it was great, James. Again, congratulations. Cheers to you.
Cheers,
and
Bill.
Renee, love you, and I'll see you both soon.
Yep, love you too. Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right, now, yeah, that is really great news, and I'm very, very proud of you, my pal, my friend. I'm going to kind of shift gears, though, if we could, because I'd like to ask our listeners for some assistance, and in talking about a subject that affects every single person. You've heard that expression that the only thing certain in life are death and taxes. But I would put you that if you happen to be a billionaire in America, you don't pay taxes, but you certainly do eventually have to die. So death, I think, is the only thing that you can really say that is the only certain thing in life. But people wonder what happens, where do we go? And I think that, or what happens after we die? Is there anything? Do we just blink out like a light bulb? Or is there something afterwards? And I think that gets really sharply highlighted when we lose someone really close to us. And then it starts to become like, my God, I need to find out. I need to find out where they went and if they're okay and what can happen. Well, several years ago, a number of years ago, as a matter of fact, I was studying near-death experiences, and I was preparing to do a film documentary on near-death experiences. I was working with a doctor who was probably the most well-known in the country at that time for working with children and their near-death experiences, which I found quite interesting because children are, not so much tainted or infected by ideas that are already out there. Their ideas or the things that they say and experience are very pure. They don't know the stories to repeat. So whatever they're saying is coming from them. But also was looking into near-death experiences in adults. And there was a meeting of the International Association of Near-Death Experiencers, a group called IANS, going on in Los Angeles. And I arranged to be able to attend one of their meetings. And it was amazing. There was probably about 30 people there, all sitting around in a circle, and went around the circle one after the other, and they all described their near-death experiences. And of course, the main thing that I took from it was almost to a person, they didn't want to come back when they had crossed over and were in that experience. It was the most wonderful experience and feeling that they'd ever had. Everything was more wonderful than we could possibly imagine. The colors, the flowers, the scent, being completely and unconditionally loved. And the idea that, they didn't really want to come back. There might be a reason they need to go back, and they agree to come back, but they really long for that place, and they completely and utterly lose their fear of death. And I was a person that feared death, like I had a phobia about it my whole life. And I just could not understand, how my life could actually ever end. And, how's the world going to keep turning if I'm gone? And, and all that. But I went to this meeting, and it was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience. I left there feeling, high and just really heartened by it. Well, about a week later, my daughter died. And I have to say that I immediately thought of that meeting that I had been to and heard all these stories. And I literally thanked God for putting me in that meeting. It was still horrible, of course. It was the worst thing I've ever been through. And I think it's the worst thing any parent, hands down, could ever go through. But it helped. It did help me hearing these people who had had firsthand experiences and had been clinically dead and were sharing their stories. And I found it so helpful. And so I'd like to explore the ideas of things like it. The other thing was, almost to a person, when they came back changed. They came back better. They came back more empathetic to other people, more understanding. They came back wanting to be of service. And the main thing they always said was, the only thing, the most important thing, and the only thing is love. And, some of these people were like, gangsters beforehand, or, just someone who just not a very deep thinker, didn't really think very spiritually. But when they went through this experience, everything changed. And so I would like to know if anyone, had a near-death experience, or a loved one or someone close to them has had a near-death experience that they'd like to share, and would write, you don't have to write a long story or anything like that, but just a few paragraphs or even a couple paragraphs on your experience, or one that you were closely associated with, and email us at info@newrennies.org. And that's just one of the things that I want to concentrate on this sort of new season of Night Vision. And I expect this to be something that we'll return to, especially if we get information coming in, because I really want to explore this idea of the other side and what does happen to us after death. And James, you and I talked about this, and you also mentioned at that time that, sometimes there are things beyond near-death experiences. Sometimes something happens and will change your life, something profound, some kind of, our friend Mahima calls it shifting tide. You go through an experience, and forever after, you're changed and you're set on a different course. And that's another thing I would like to hear from our listeners about is, did you have something that happened that changed you forever, and either for good or for bad? And I guess, the most profound thing that's ever happened to me, of course, is the loss of my daughter. And I will say this, and to anyone who's out there grieving, you will get better. You will be okay. You will find a new normal. You'll be different, but you might even be better. I found that after that experience, I thought I was sort of a sympathetic and empathetic person beforehand, but I found that there was something missing, because afterwards I had it and I was more tuned in to people. And, there's that saying, I think it was Rumi that said, always be kind because everyone's fighting a battle. And that really came home to me at that time when I was so vulnerable. And, sometimes people would say thoughtless things and, oh, you should have done this. If you'd have come to my doctor, maybe your daughter would still be alive. And you want to just, your head wants to explode. But you will get better. You will feel better. And you may come out better in the end. Of course, I would never, ever, ever trade having my daughter here with me for any gifts that might have come along. But we have to be thankful for what we do have. And so I am thankful that I think she made me a better person and a more selfless person. Not that I'm not selfish, I won't say that, but just less selfish, we'll put it that way. But please, if you have any of those experiences that you'd like to share with us, and that, and if you want to give us permission to them on there, and then possibly we might even reach back out to you and see if you want to tell your story yourself. So we'd love to have that. And I mean, we've got a lot of things coming up. The other thing that I wanted to ask our listeners help on is a lot of guys are already familiar with the Templar map that James has been working on and creating. It's just amazing. It's an interactive map with Templar locations that have been identified, marked. You can click on sites and see a photograph and a little brief history of what's there. If you know of any Templar sites that we may have missed, certainly send those in. But I was also thinking about maybe creating some other maps. And, James was sort of telling me how it could be done because technologically I am lacking. But I was thinking it'd be great to start taking reports on people's experiences, whether it's a UFO sighting or whether it's a paranormal experience or a ghost sighting. Oh, there's the Templar map. This is just I'm talking. My gosh, what a concentration of locations there. That's gotten even more dense. Oh my word, those are Templar sites, people. Those of you who are just listening, there's red Templar crosses on these locations, and in certain areas of, Great Britain and in Europe, Western Europe, it's just solid, almost solid red with crosses. Going down into Portugal, and over here, my eyes are terrible. And they thin out as you go eastward.
So,
they disappear altogether.
I've been working on the map now for about 6-7 years. Getting to a point where I think there's another couple of years. But I think what we were discussing is to try and do a sort of KGRA map similar to try and map out some paranormal sites.
Exactly.
Kurt was talking first hour about the meridians. Now, if we can map something, we might find that, I don't know, these particular areas of more paranormal activity.
That's right.
So this would be qualitative research, if you want to look at it like that, or just good fun for us to build a map database of where people have had paranormal experiences. So if you're listening and you're thinking, well, actually, I keep seeing UFOs or keep seeing ghosts or whatever it is,
Bigfoot, whatever, cryptids, we want to know if you're having strange experiences, when and where, and we'd love to hear about them. So send those over to us as well. But I know that James has a lot of ideas coming up about some more shows on the Templars and on the so-called heretics, the Cathars. And what else have we got coming down the line, James, that you want
with the Templars? So we're going to explore a little bit of how they came to be, and I'm not talking about the elderly men who were over in the Middle East. I really am talking about what happened beforehand. What was the need for an order like that, and why was it
sort of the run up to the Templars, right?
Yeah. For Star Wars fans, the prequel is what we're calling it, but don't worry, it's not going to be as bad as that. So, what enabled them, and crucially, why was it that the Pope didn't choose as his personal bodyguard the Hospitaller, other orders that were around? What was it that made the Templars so unique, and why were they needed? Ultimately, of course, why did they come to an end? So we've got some shows on that. More on the Cathars, having a look at their relationship with a group of people called the Manichaeists. Some very interesting new discoveries there that are going to get aired. I know that we want to continue to do a show on revolutions as well. So looking at the Russian Revolution and the French Revolution as well. I think that's coming up later in the year. But if you've got any ideas,
it would be really interesting, especially juxtaposed against what's going on. I would love to look at the past in over there in the area of Russia, Eastern Europe, because I feel like we've kind of got a repeating of history here or something that's going on.
Well, this is the frustration of a historian, really, isn't it? People don't read the history, so we're doomed to repeat similar mistakes.
So they keep doing it.
Those
who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it.
You watch the news and you go, why haven't you read about this? Why are we doing this again? But crucially, if you have any ideas, the more ideas we get, we will pick one of them as a sort of prize, if you will. But if you've got any ideas for a upcoming show, then email us info@newrennies. That's info as in information at strange at sign, little a with a curl around it, and then New Rennies, that's spelled NEWRENNIES.org. Drop us an email with your show ideas, and we will pick one to choose and introduce and credit whose idea it was. So get in touch with us in this way.
Absolutely.
And
we may pick more than one. We
may
pick more than one. I mean, keep them coming. We love it. We want to talk about the things that you want to hear about. So we'd love to have your ideas, and absolutely we'll credit you if you'd like that on the air with creating that show or helping to produce that show with us. And we'd love to just cover the subjects that you really want to hear about. And, if you think of something, throw it at us. If we feel we can do it justice and it fits, within our show parameters, we'll be happy to do it. I think that would be fun to get, because we just sit and come up with the ideas ourselves. And I think it'd be fun to just have them thrown at us. That would be great.
Absolutely.
But what is on the agenda as far as travels go coming up? Now, I know that, once I get back over there, we're definitely going over to St. Enemy and also to look at the Ideal Palace. But there are some other structures over there. And of course, St. Enemy was a Merovingian, and I'm always into hearing about the Merovingians, although our dearly departed Tim Wallace Murphy always put them down. It wasn't the Merovingians that were important, it was the Carolingians. And I said, no, but I'm related to the Merovingians. I'm just talking about my family right now. So that certainly, and plus, there was a lot of hubbub, that came out with, I guess probably was Holy Blood, Holy Grail back in 1982 about the Merovingian connection to the whole overarching mystery somehow.
Yeah, I think the Merovingians, yeah, I mean, their origins are meant to be a fish, really, some fish god, and that's really my thoughts on them. Yes, they existed, but there's far too much attributed to them that really wasn't them at all. So, for example, at Rennes-le-Chateau, people refer to, this Merovingian. It's Carolingian. It really is Carolingian. It's from a period of time. I'm not taking anything from the Merovingians or anything like that. I am, but I'm not. Anyway. In terms of travel,
I think I like the idea of the story about the half man and half fish. I mean, of course, I don't believe it, but I'd like to know what the real story was and who the real person was.
We should perhaps call them the mermaid Indians or something like that.
Exactly.
In terms of travel, I did
have a boyfriend that used to call me Flipper for some reason. Maybe he had some, inside knowledge about my Merovingian heritage that I didn't even know about at the time.
It could very well be, or maybe you look like a dolphin. I don't know.
Or maybe he just thought I looked like a big whale on the couch or something. I don't know. Anyway.
But in terms of travel, I'm heading back to Argyll in late February to continue some research into what I'm beginning to more comfortably say were some Templar, or at least immediate descendants of Templars who had escaped France, or perhaps were even there in the area of Argyll. There was a guy called Maidment who was writing in the Victorian period who gives this line where he's mapping Templar sites, or the ones that he knew of at least. And he says there were no Templars in Argyll. Now, I don't know about you, if someone says, don't look over there, the first thing that I do is look over there. Of
course, you have to.
Following 6-7 years of going up to Argyll, certainly looking at some of the stones and beginning to date them, it might be the case that I'll just say might be the case. It's worth exploring that the Templars who were persecuted in France for very interesting reasons ended up over in Scotland. Ended up in Germany. I think we were saying at the first hour with Court, this Teutonic Knights and the Crusade up in the Baltic states. Yep, they certainly ended up there. Some of them, I mean, a recent find has been 2 Templars who actually were perhaps Jewish, who ended up becoming ambassadors to one of the caliphates in Northern Africa. You just scratch your head and think, wow, okay. And then, of course, you've got the planning another trip into Spain. We'll probably do this when you're over, to really follow the trail of the Templars. I mean, they're not all knights. Some of them are muck shovelers. I can't say the other word that usually is.
Where in Spain would this be that you're talking about?
Where Aragon was originally located. So where we visited one.
We're actually in Aragon, right?
Yeah.
In southern France, where you live, and then it extends down in through Spain. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know you're going, for other reasons and business, you're going to be spending some time in Gibraltar. Is there anything around there to be explored or to be found? I know the Templars were in,
Escape from the monkeys are there.
Oh, that's right, the crazy monkeys.
Pretty vicious. No, in short, the entire area of southern Spain was subject to the Reconquista. So by the time of the Templars, interesting to note, Portugal likely founded by the Templars. They changed their name in Portugal to the Order of Christ. In Spain, they did pretty much the same until the Inquisition sort of came from France into Spain and all of that. But that area of southern Spain until 1492 was called Al-Andalus, or Andalusia as we call it today.
Yeah.
So the Templars weren't operating in that part of Moorish or Islamic Spain as it was. But this said, the architecture in the area, I think Seville, Cordova, places like this, is absolutely breathtaking. Really interesting, Moroccan style, North African buildings, absolutely stunning. So I think it will.
I'm sorry. I was going to say I'm going to have to brush up on my Spanish because in Barcelona, which of course is also Aragon, there are the archives of the kings and queens of Aragon. That's where they're located. And I would love to go have a look at those and see what we can glean.
I want to have a look at the will, wherever it might be.
Oh, Alfonso?
Look at the will of Alfonso,
King Alfonso,
who left the Kingdom of Aragon when it was more northward facing to the Templars, the Hospital and the Order of Christ, the Knights of Christ. Why on earth would
do
they
you think that there would be, in the region down there, do you believe that there are descendants of the Templars? I would think there would be.
There was one commandery I visited. I'm not going to name it because there are particular sensitivities, but there was a commandery that I visited, uncovered.
Have I visited it?
You have.
Okay.
And first time I went, there was a guy who'd visited the vineyard nearby, and he had actually just a few weeks before been at a symposium with Tim Wallace Murphy in Sicily. So very strange coincidence. Anyway, he was tracing his family. He was a Jewish guy. He was tracing his family by where the order had planted cedar trees.
Oh.
And it was when I was told that, it was only then that the person who owns the land of the preceptory took me round, off the beaten track, and was pointing out cedar trees which are not native to the area.
Yeah.
Other preceptories then down the coast of Catalonia, and further down, you see some cedar trees. And what this guy was doing is he was literally traveling from Italy and following a route that his ancestors had taken using where they planted trees. Now that was, I have quite a bit of documentation about that visit.
I wonder if there's any other reason why they chose that particular type of tree. I mean, the only reason I say that is anytime I hear about cedar trees, I always think about how special and sacred they are. Where I came from, Oklahoma, with the Native American tribes, it's like, a lot of people burn sage, and they do as well. But the main thing to do is burn cedar branches. It's in they do it in a ceremonial way.
Well, it
And
appears,
then also,
it appears on the flag of Lebanon. You know, where you had.
I know, but I wonder, if there's something particular other than that. Yeah, of course, I know where it comes from, but and I wonder, were cedar trees native to America? Let's see. Or that's something to look into.
I mean, this is a new way of looking at things. So I will have to speak to a botanist and establish where a cedar tree. This is just what I've been told.
I mean, the most precious gift that you can give someone in certain tribes I know of, I don't know about all tribes, but certain tribes, is a piece of lightning struck cedar bark or cedar wood from a tree that's been struck by lightning.
That was really interesting.
The other most precious gift that you can give someone is a piece of meteorite. They call it a piece of God.
Yeah, when I was so in book one, I know, Court, if you're still listening, the Norse most certainly were in North America. Whether they got as far south as the United States is, a question. But I think
they did.
I personally,
I mean, I don't know, but there are some signs.
But it's use of metallurgy. So that meteorite stuff, especially in places where there isn't known iron melting, for example, or any iron smelting technology, came from, this was what was his name? I forget, but this was a book that essentially said the only way you can get metal is through meteorite in the area of the sort of glacial wilderness of North America.
Wow.
The Thule culture venerated them. When the Norse got there and the Dorset culture and Thule culture were replacing each other, they introduced some of that technology, which was still being used up until the 1800s. And when asked, how did you figure out how to use this? Because there's no tradition of smelting. They said, it was the white man, and gave some descriptions of what we would accept as being Norse. Now, whether or not that's evidence enough to satisfy people, I'm not too sure. But yeah, I can certainly see that. And again, in the deserts of Egypt, where meteorites are very common, in fact, due to the latitude that it's at, that country's at, they too are venerated. And you've then got other questions about Ark of the
And
Covenant.
then you've got the largest collection of meteorites in the world at the Pope's summer residence, Castel Gandolfo. Why is the Pope, collecting meteorites? And then you've got, the big observatory. Well, at Castel Gandolfo is an observatory, and then there's the one.
Oh, Renee, we've just been asked a question,
one in
actually.
Arizona.
Just been asked a question again by Benjamin, and we've also had an email through as well. Charles, thank you. We'll read that email and come back to you. Benjamin just said, what do you guys think
Charles,
of the recent UFO report? So Benjamin said, what do you guys think about the recent UFO report that's coming out?
That's coming out. Probably nothing, as I suspect. Well, Benjamin, that's one on me. I don't know about it. James, have you heard?
No, but with these things, I tend to think that there are a lot of unusual things going on in the heavens that we don't necessarily understand. And a lot of these reports get people very excited, and then people get very deflated afterwards when it turns out.
Yeah, it's like, the government's going to put out a report on the UFOs and stuff, and then it kind of falls flat. the one thing I will say in a positive way about that is that they are beginning to acknowledge them and stop sort of laughing at them so much in the government and on news, on mainstream news. You know, it's always been, you know, sort of the last story of the newscast, the little human interest chuckle story. You know, oh, lights in the sky, a flying saucer. I wonder if it was little green man. Ha ha ha. You know, but now you're kind of seeing more serious acknowledgement that there are some things there. Obviously, we still don't know what they are, or they still don't know what they are, but they are unusual.
Just coming back to what we've just been talking about in terms of stigma, just a little message for everyone. When I'm reading history or doing site visits and that, some more academic friends instantly jump to dismissal and laughing at the concept of a ghost or things like that. Perhaps we should stop doing that. Perhaps we should, you know, be skeptical if that's what you want to be. You know, I'm a healthy skeptic. I have my own beliefs, as everyone else does. But we shouldn't laugh at people because they've seen or witnessed something. That just might be something for us to investigate, or it could be something innocent. No, we shouldn't jump to ghosts and aliens and whatever else because we don't have an explanation. But equally, let's just take people on face value and not, you know, laugh at them.
Oh,
really.
Boy. Well, Benjamin, got another question. Have you heard about the fake alien invasion brought up by Werner von Braun's assistant? I guess we'll talk about that another time because it's almost time for us to go. Oh, it's time for us to go. The clock just ticked over. And I want to say thank you to everyone for being with us tonight. And thank you, James, and congratulations again on 10 years clean. No small feat or accomplishment. It's wonderful, and I really am happy about that for you. It's wonderful.
Great to be
back. And I'm happy about it for me, too, because that means you're going to be around a lot longer, so I can bug you more.
Right.
But anyway, good night, everybody. We love you guys. Be good to yourselves and do something nice for somebody else. It feels so good. Night, everybody.